Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Newton. I'm a current Psychology of the Gifted and Creative student, and I am working to give you some information about the things that I have learned throughout this semester. Throughout this semester, we have been presented with a plethora of information about gifted and talented students. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is identifying gifted and talented students. No matter where you look or where you go, there's no concrete definition for giftedness in students. Each student is different, and the way that their giftedness is presented is also different. Students can be identified as gifted in multiple areas that are unknown often to educators. Because of this, I'm going to go through some of those areas that students can be identified in. The first is general academic ability. These students perform above their peers in most of their academic areas. They show high levels of abstract thinking, verbal and numerical reasoning, spatial relations, memory, and word fluency. Next, we have specific academic ability. These students perform above their peers in a specified, identified academic area. So this may be an area such as math, science, reading, or other academic areas. Next is the performing arts. These students have a clear talent in the areas of music, dance, drama, or other arts-related areas. After that, you have leadership. These students show frequent qualities of leadership in both academic and social settings. They may be highly involved in school, church, and community activities, and they naturally fall into the role of a leader. Finally, you have creativity. These are the students that have the ability to think outside the box. They create original thoughts to help problem solve and create unique products. There are lots of different areas of identification. These vary wherever you go, and sometimes educators are unaware that students are identified in areas other than just general academics. Seeing that all students present their giftedness in different ways, Susan K. Johnson gives us a great look into the identification process through this quote: "No single test can capture a gifted student's dynamic abilities. This means that more than one method of assessment needs to be used in order to identify gifted and talented students. Identification processes vary for each school district, as the district is in charge of deciding how gifted students will be identified. Typically, the first step of identification is when students are nominated by a teacher or a staff member of their school for the gifted program. Then, students are screened through various processes depending on their areas of nomination. This step can include interviews, written evidence collected by the teacher, IQ and ability tests, and so on. Finally, based on information from the screening process, students are placed in the gifted programs that will best meet their needs as a student." Identifying gifted students at an early age is important, especially for students who come from backgrounds with economic disadvantages. Some students who are high performers in the classroom may not be gifted learners at all, while other students who are disruptive and uninterested may just be gifted students who need some extra attention. Therefore, it's the job of the educator to know the signs of giftedness in students. According to the National Association for the Gifted, some indicators of giftedness in children could be students who are rapid learners, students who have an excellent memory, students with an expansive vocabulary and a complex sentence structure for their age, students with advanced comprehension and understanding of abstract ideas, students with concerns about political and social issues and injustices, students with highly developed curiosity, students who ask probing questions, and students who put ideas and thoughts together that are typically unusual for those their age. As an educator, it's your job to know the signs of a gifted student so that they can be identified and receive the services that they need. Now that you know a little bit about the identification process of gifted and talented students, let's look forward towards the needs and practices that we can use to help those students. According to Lily, a 10-year-old in 5th grade, gifted kids are not good at everything just because we are considered gifted in one subject. Everything does not come easy to us just because we are smart. So just as Lily states, gifted students also have problems or struggle areas. Gifted students often experience struggles in both emotional and social areas. Our first area of struggle that we're going to look at is an area of emotional struggle. This emotional struggle is called heightened emotional sensitivity. This can present itself in many ways. Some of those ways that heightened emotional sensitivity proves itself is when there's an intensity of both positive and negative feelings among the gifted student. They are often timid and shy. They may show depressive moods, fearfulness, and anxieties. These students might have emotional ties and attachments to others, and they may also be critical of their self and show a negative self-judgment. When faced with these indicators, there are many strategies that educators and parents can adopt in order to address and meet the needs of gifted students who have heightened emotional sensitivities. Some of those strategies that can be implemented include both parents and educators making them feel understood and supported by letting them know that those intense feelings are common for gifted students. Parents and educators also need to practice discipline that is consistent with one another so that eventually the student will be able to self-discipline. Parents and educators should discuss the feelings, both negative and positive, freely with those students who are struggling. Finally, parents and educators need to help the students find creative ways to express their heightened emotions. Such ways include writing, art, music, and other physical activities. Another area that gifted students sometimes experience struggle in is an area of social struggle. Sometimes gifted students mature at a faster rate than their peers. A quote from Landau and Weissler says that emotional maturity is defined as the strength and courage to actualize individual abilities within the frame of social demands, just meaning that students know what is socially appropriate when interacting with their peers. However, some gifted students interact with adults more appropriately than their own peers. According to the Davidson Institute for Gifted Children, they generally gravitate towards maturity peers, so children who are at similar stages of intellectual and emotional development. Some indicators of this quickened maturity include difficulty forming friendships with students their age, mature sense of humor in comparison to their peers, preferred conversations with adults including teachers and parents, and finally, play or recreation interests that are similar to those of older peers rather than their own. Just as before, I have found strategies that can be implemented in order to help students cope with uneven maturity development. Some strategies for parents and teachers include a discussion with gifted students about the chronological, mental, and emotional development. Another strategy is to reassure the student that maturity differences are common amongst gifted students and their peers. Ability group students so that they are able to work with students who are the same maturity level as they are. And finally, allow students time to socialize with those older students who are at a maturity equivalent. A final area of struggle for gifted students includes a lack of motivation, or underachievement. Many gifted students, although academically capable, lack the motivation to perform at their ability level. Lack of motivation could be due to many reasons. Some of those reasons include the fact that teachers and other educators often lack the education and information they need to meet the needs of those gifted students. The lessons or content presented don't really interest or challenge that student. For lack of better words, they're bored of what's being taught. Another reason is that students could lack a significant or meaningful relationship with their teacher. The student's family may not value or push education because it's not one of their core values at home. In addition, the student's peers don't always value intelligence. Gifted students often feel pressure to fit in, which causes them sometimes to underachieve. Finally, another cause could be that gifted students are often perfectionists, and their fear of making mistakes keeps them from attempting more difficult tasks. The Davidson Institute suggests several strategies to help motivate gifted students who are underachieving. Some of those suggested strategies include, first of all, challenge gifted students, encourage them to take educational risks, and help them to make a connection between their effort and their successes. Build on their strengths. When students are given the opportunity to use their talents to reach success, they can simultaneously work on improving or gaining back their motivation. Offer the students choices. When students are allowed to choose their learning activities, they take ownership in what they are doing. This fosters responsibility in the child, which motivates them to perform at their highest ability. Next, provide students with a secure environment. Create somewhere that ensures a student that it's okay to fail. With this realization, students will be more motivated to attempt challenging work without fear of penalty due to failure. Lastly, offer open-ended activities. These activities help foster creativity in students, which, in turn, causes them to perform with higher motivation when their creativity is locked in. If you have noticed, there's a common theme between each of the strategies given to us by the Davidson Institute. Each one of them go back to the teacher in finding out where the problem arises and how to fix that problem within each student. Remember that each student is different, and their motivation may come from somewhere else than another student. To wrap up what I just said, here's a quote from Joanne Rand Whitmore. The main difference between high-ability achievers and high-ability underachievers is that the achievers have learned the attitudes and strategies that enable them to be successful in a school setting. Essentially, those who are successful are the ones that know how to motivate themselves. As a teacher, it's your job to help that child find what motivates them. The importance of assessing the gifted and talented. Assessment is key to the success of the Gifted and Talented program. Not only is it used for identifying gifted students, but it is also used for assessing student learning and the validity of a chosen program. Educators should use both pre- and post-assessments to help gauge the learnings and understandings of the students in their group. Data can be gathered from the students' performance on pre-assessments to help educators plan instruction. Based on this data, educators can identify the strengths and weaknesses of identified gifted students and plan interventions according to what each student needs. Based on their needs, students can be ability grouped to pair them with peers on their level. Assessments can also be used to decide which education options would best fit the needs of the students assessed. Based on the data, students may be recommended for interventions like early entrance into kindergarten, accelerated classes, multi-grade classrooms, distance learning classes, dual credit classes, honors classes, mentorships, and so on. Administrators should also use assessments and data to analyze the effectiveness of the program that is being implemented in order to service the gifted and talented students. Based on the results of the program analysis test, administrators can suggest ways to improve the program so that it is more effectively meeting the needs of their member students. Family and educator collaboration. Collaboration is key to the success of both gifted programs and the identified gifted and talented students. Collaboration is a must among many groups involved in the education process. The first group who collaboration is key amongst is both the gifted, general, and special educators of that child. Because giftedness affects the development of the child as a whole, it takes the collaboration of educators who special in areas of emotional, social, and academic well-being to meet the diversified needs of each and every gifted and talented student. The second group who collaboration is key among is educators and families. Not only should the school personnel collaborate with one another, but they should also collaborate with the families of gifted students. It is important that both parties are aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the child and what needs should be getting met at both home and at school. Many times, parents have to advocate for the rights of their gifted student, so it's essential that they stay involved in the education of their child. When teachers and families collaborate, they can pull resources from both within the school and outside the school to better the educational opportunities available. It is essential that teachers understand that parents are consulted with when making educational decisions about their students. Parents have insight about the student abilities and needs that educators may not see. Parents also need reassurance and understanding from teachers and educators. Providing for a child is stressful, especially one who is gifted. Teachers and administrators need to be mindful of this when communicating with families of gifted students. For teachers who are collaborating with gifted students and their families, it's important to do many things, including be willing to try new activities in order to meet the student's need, work closely with parents to develop an intervention plan, invite parents to get involved with their child's education, become more aware through PDs, trainings, readings, and so on about education options for students so that you can communicate these options with families. Teachers should also encourage parents to talk with the parents of other gifted students. Finally, offer support to parents and help them understand what to expect from their gifted student. They need support just as teachers need support in the process of educating their child. Educators and parents. Educate yourself. More often than not, gifted students don't receive the services they should due to a lack of knowledge amongst educators and parents. As an educator or parent, you may be the only voice a gifted student has. It's our duty as their mentor to fight for the rights of these students to allow them the education they both need and deserve in order to grow as a learner. Before I wrap up, I'll leave you with this. Always remember, to not offer guidance for even the most brilliant students is a great disservice. Thank you for your time, and remember to spread the word.